Hi, Papa. Nothing. How are you? I love you.
Another billboard or what?
Yep, it's happening. Bye. That's our family friend, Papa Jay. His name's Justin, but he's like my father figure. My family's queer and interracial. And then I also lived in the two different worlds because I went to private school, in elementary school, but then I'd like come home to here and like go to the Boys and Girls Club in Sarah Holbrook.
Right.
And like the class makeup of those two places was very different. This is the house I lived in I think this was the house we lived in after the first house we lived in Pine Street, on Pine Street when we first moved up here. And that was like 90 that we moved here. I remember we lived in this house and she was like, "You're going to the Boys and Girls Club." And I was like, "No, I am not." And I had been at private school. But it was really good opportunity for me to like interact with people in my neighborhood because I wasn't going to neighborhood schools. I wasn't making any neighborhood friends. Yeah, I spent many years and summers at the Boys and Girls Club now that I'm like haven't looked at it from this side in a really long time, and can remember like really hot days, like they would have benches out here like under this where the mural is, and like having, you know, like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which I hate. And we'd have like these little juice cups, like these, I feel like they're like government issued juice cups that are like, they'd always be like kind of frozen, and we'd like always like poke the top and shove our straw in there and like try to mix it up and like get the juice to actually be there instead of like frozen. And I remember one Christmas at the Boys and Girls Club, I saw this commercial, and it was like, come help needy kids at the Boys and Girls Club and give out toys or something. And I remember looking at my mom and being like, "But I go there, like, what are they talking about? Like, we're not all needy. I don't understand what that means." And so I think that's one of my early memories of like depictions of the Old North End, and like a lot of deficit thinking around the Old North End. And, you know, people are constantly focusing on like poverty levels and like free and reduced lunch statistics in the schools, and like the schools are going to close and they're failing and all this. And I think people forget that like there's a lot of positive, resourceful people here too from all over the world. And from what I understand, it's kind of been like that for a long time in the Old North End. That house, actually, we used to have some good friends there that were our neighbors, which were very supportive during transitioning into this neighborhood. Our neighbors in this house we're about to come up to would pick dandelions from this front yard here and would write "fag" on the porch. And I always think about my parents, like now that I'm older, I always think about my parents coming home after like a really long day at work to that. This is it. Oh my gosh, it looks so tiny when you're back in front of it. 38 Drew Street, yeah.
Where do you live now?
On Blodgett Street, one street over.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we used to like ride our bikes a ton on this street, and then that's another thing. I'm really bad with street names. Because like growing up here, you just like go to Amanda's house or Rachel's house and
Right.
Nafisa's house. This middle street, I don't even know what that is. School Street? Is that what that says?
It's
Spring Street.
Yeah.
We'll keep going. And we moved to this house. I don't even know how old I was. We've been at this house for a long, long time. Like when I think about growing up, like this is the house that I grew up in. That's as opposed to like the Drew Street house or the Stanford Road house. And we just built this porch. Well, I didn't build. This porch was just put on last summer or the summer before last, and we love it. We're very excited about this.
It's a nice porch.
Yeah, we're into it. And this is the backyard where we don't really spend a lot of time, and that's my first apartment over there after college, the red one with like the back porch. Let's see. So yeah, that's my house. I love it dearly. It's my parents talk about moving and selling it, and that makes me really sad inside because I want it. And I don't want it to go. I lived in DC for 2 years after I graduated from St. Mike's, and the things I pictured the most when I was gone that made me miss home were my street, and then like the strip of Main Street in front of like Nectar's and the courthouse and like Muddy Waters. And for some reason I would always think like, what's going on there right now? Like, I know there's people walking by, I know there's a ton of people in Muddy Waters. Like, I really miss home. I just want to be like in that space. And now that I'm home and when I'm in that space, I'm like, ah, oh, feels good. It feels good to be here. I want to say it's this one. And I can remember my mom like up on the roof right here. And I really, it's one of these. I think it's this one. But she was with like Women Builds or something like that. But so I was coming home from, I would always come see her at her work site, and I'm sorry. And one day I was coming home from the Boys and Girls Club, and this was my Mama Sharon, who's a white woman, and I was coming home from the Boys and Girls Club, and someone on the corner of like by Sunshine Laundry, on that side of the street though, some little boy was on the corner and called me a nigger, and I was like 10, probably like 11 or 12, and I remember just being like, like, this is the first time I ever remember being called that, right? So it was like straight to my heart. And I remember just like walking, like looking down, like over here, and like getting to my mom's like work site and like looking up and seeing her up there, and like just started crying and was like, Mom, this boy called me this name and it was horrible. And I remember her just like stopped working, like got down, like came downstairs, climbed down the ladder, and was like, where is he? She's like, we're going to find him. And we went together, and we found him, and she was just like laid into him, like, you can't call her that, like, what's wrong with you, where are your parents, we're gonna talk about this, like all sorts of motherly protective things. And it's funny because like now I haven't thought about that in a while, and now I'm older, and like your parents don't get to do that for you anymore. Like someone hurts your feeling, like, he broke up with me, like, can you come like lay into him and like protect me again, right? Like, so that doesn't happen anymore. Definitely remember like the baseball games, which is great, right? Because they're like still going on, you can still see them. And I remember growing up, everyone was like, Burlington is so diverse, and I was not buying it because it was like me and like 3 of my brown friends that like we were like the diversity, and it just and they would say for Vermont, which always felt like a cop-out, you know? But when I got back from DC and started working in the schools and we went around on opening day, it was completely different than when I was growing up. It's great to see everybody out, like, in Battery Park, you know, people playing volleyball in the summer, and here all summer, like, people out on the basketball court. So that's what you gotta do. You gotta be outside. You gotta take up space in your community, right? It's so funny to think of myself all little coming here. But yeah, the pool's always been here, and that was like, pool was a big deal. Like pool, like I learned how to swim here, I learned how to dive here, and we would always like crouch on the edge of the pool and then jump in. That's how we first learned how to dive. This was here, it was like the you know, like the hands holding Boys and Girls symbol, that was up there. And it's funny because I have all these friends from out of state, and one thing that I find a lot with Vermonters is that like we get really territorial, and like as I'm talking more about this is why, because like we have all these stories connected to these places, and I think this is probably how it is everywhere, and I'm not saying it's a good thing to be territorial, because I think we're seeing some of that now, and then you get these stories in your head about people that are coming in and they're going to take this from me and they're going to take that from me, and we used to get this and now it's not like that anymore, you know. But there's definitely something special about having like deep connection to physical, you know, buildings and spaces. Like, it's not just a pool, it's like the pool where XYZ happened, you know. I'm glad it's here.